It began just like any other flight, the familiar shuffle of passengers finding their places, the hum of the engines as the plane prepared to climb into the sky. But for Jordan Miles, this journey was different. 17 years old, with a heart full of dreams and a mind still adjusting to the thrill of his first solo trip, Jordan had finally managed something he'd been working toward for months: an upgrade to first class. Jordan had always imagined this moment: the wide leather seats, the polite offer of orange juice before takeoff, the quiet dignity of being treated like he belonged. He had saved every dime from his part-time job, sacrificed nights out with friends, skipped lunches, and counted coins to make this possible. When he finally eased into that plush seat near the window, he felt like he had stepped into a different world. A world where, for the first time, he wasn't just another kid from the South Side. He was someone. But the glow of accomplishment was cut short when a flight attendant, a woman with neatly pinned hair and a smile that didn't quite meet her eyes, approached him. She glanced at his boarding pass and then back at him, skepticism flickering across her face. "Excuse me, young man," she said with an edge of authority wrapped in politeness. "I believe you're in the wrong seat." Jordan's stomach tightened. He held out his pass, his voice steady. "No, ma'am. This is my seat. I paid for the upgrade." Her eyes narrowed, lips pursed. "I'm going to need you to move back to economy. This area is reserved for passengers who have paid for these seats." "I have," Jordan repeated, his hands beginning to tremble. Around him, the other passengers buried their faces in magazines and devices, avoiding the confrontation as if his presence was an inconvenience they didn't want to acknowledge. The flight attendant straightened, the false smile gone. "Sir, I am asking you politely to move." Jordan felt the flush of humiliation rise in his cheeks. His voice cracked slightly as he said, "Can you please explain why you're asking me to move when I have a valid boarding pass?" She exchanged a quick, knowing glance with another crew member. There was an unspoken message in that look. Without answering his question directly, she repeated, "Please move to the back." Jordan's heart pounded. He looked down at his pass again, then up at the faces around him. Nobody spoke. Nobody helped. The shame of the moment pressed down on him like a weight. But instead of retreating, Jordan did something that surprised even himself. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and dialed the one number he knew might change the course of what was happening. "Mr. Davis?" Jordan's voice wavered as the line connected. "It's Jordan. I need your help." A moment of silence passed before the calm, authoritative voice responded, "What's going on, son?" Jordan took a shaky breath. "I'm on the flight now, but they're trying to kick me out of my seat. They say I don't belong in first class." "Stay calm. Tell me the airline and flight number. I'll handle it. Don't move." Jordan's fingers gripped the phone tighter as he relayed the details. Across the aisle, the flight attendant's expression shifted the moment she heard him mentioning someone on the phone. Doubt crept into her posture, but she stood her ground, arms folded tightly across her chest. Within minutes, the plane, which had already begun taxiing, came to a sudden stop. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a minor issue and will be returning to the gate." Confused murmurs spread through the cabin. Jordan sat frozen, staring ahead, hands clenched into fists. The flight attendant's face paled slightly as she retreated down the aisle to whisper urgently with another crew member. When the plane docked back at the gate, two men in dark suits boarded. They weren't airline staff. Their badges identified them as part of the airline's corporate executive team. They spoke quietly with the captain before turning their attention toward Jordan. "Mr. Miles?" one of the men asked. "Would you mind stepping off the plane with us for a moment?" Jordan's throat tightened. "Am I being removed from the flight?" The man shook his head. "No, sir. You're not in trouble. We just need to speak with you privately." Outside the aircraft, they guided Jordan into a private office in the terminal where another woman waited, holding a sleek tablet. "Jordan, my name is Danielle Cooper," she introduced herself. "I'm the director of flight operations. I'm here because our CEO received a call on your behalf." Jordan nodded, his heart pounding as Danielle continued. "We've confirmed your ticket and your upgrade. There was no mistake. Can you tell me exactly what happened?" Jordan recounted every detail: the cold dismissal, the refusal to check his boarding pass, the way the flight attendant simply assumed he didn't belong. Danielle listened closely, nodding thoughtfully. "Thank you for sharing this. I want you to know this is being taken very seriously. She stood, her voice softening. The flight won't continue with that crew. They've been removed pending investigation. Jordan's eyes widened. I didn't mean for. You did the right thing, Danielle interrupted gently. You spoke up for yourself. And that's exactly what you should have done. Back in the terminal, news of the grounded flight began to circulate. A video quietly captured by a nearby passenger had already begun making its rounds online. It showed the moment the attendant confronted Jordan, her tone sharp, her body language hostile. The footage stirred immediate outrage. Comments poured in, decrying the injustice, applauding Jordan's composure. Media outlets began to pick up the story. It wasn't long before headlines flashed across screens. Teen passenger removed from first-class, allegations of racial discrimination spark outcry. But for Jordan, the most important message came from Mr. Davis. A simple text: I'm proud of you for standing your ground. As the airline scrambled to manage the fallout, they issued public statements, promised internal reviews, and placed the flight attendant on administrative leave. But they also extended a private apology to Jordan along with a full refund and a lifetime flight credit. They invited him to participate in a roundtable discussion about passenger rights and diversity training. Jordan declined the media frenzy. He chose one interview, speaking calmly about what happened, his reasons for refusing to move, and the deeper issue of assumptions and bias. I wasn't trying to cause a scene, he said. I was just trying to keep my seat. The one I paid for. His quiet dignity resonated. The interview went viral, not for its drama, but for the clarity of his words and the calm strength behind them. Other passengers, crew members, and airline employees began to share their own stories, adding momentum to a growing conversation about fairness and respect. In the weeks that followed, the airline implemented sweeping changes to their training programs. They introduced bias awareness modules, updated their boarding procedures, and publicly committed to tracking and addressing discrimination complaints. They invited Jordan to be part of a youth advisory panel, role he accepted after much thought, determined to make sure what happened to him wouldn't happen to anyone else. Through it all, Jordan stayed grounded, returning to his school life, finishing homework between interviews and meetings, balancing the weight of unexpected fame with the normal pressures of teenage life. And while his story had captured national attention, he never let it define him. The next time Jordan boarded a plane, he held his head high as he settled into his first-class seat. This time, no one questioned him. And though the world may have seen him as the boy who grounded a plane, Jordan knew he was something much more powerful, the boy who stayed seated, and by doing so, stood tall for justice.